Oh my goodness, my friend. I have so much ground to cover today. There is so much that I want to share with you, so much stuff that has happened lately, and some crazy stories. So hold on to your seat because I have a lot to share, and I really hope this video is not way super duper long. But first of all, I just want to say that I have felt inspired lately to start to build a coalition to change the name of rheumatoid arthritis. Because for me personally and my lived experience over the last year and a half, it does not reflect the disease. And whenever you tell someone, a family member or a friend or a passerby, new acquaintance, doesn't matter, anyone in your social circle, the name rheumatoid arthritis, how many people just don't understand it? Please let me know in the comments below if you have experienced something weird where someone just doesn't understand. I just don't feel like this name identifies or defines what we really go through. So I'm starting the path for that. And if you feel the same way, please let me know. And some names that you feel like it would be better to explain it. Maybe rheumatoid autoimmune disease. I think that one's kind of a good one. And you can create the acronym of RAD, rheumatoid or no, arthritis. It's so easy to say. Rheumatoid autoimmune disease, RAD. That's kind of cool. But anyway, I really believe the name needs to be changed. And let me just tell you, there's some other names in history that have been changed, medical diagnosis names. And one, for example, is Mongolism. Now, the only time I ever heard that word was my great grandmother said the word mongoloid. And I didn't know what that was, but nowadays we say it's Down syndrome. Another one is consumption. Today we call it tuberculosis. And another one is Asperger's. And that, I guess, had a negative stigma because the man or doctor that identified it was a part of the Nazi party. So, anyway, we changed that name. And I just believe that the name rheumatoid arthritis causes us in the community whether you have been diagnosed and living with it for many years or for the newly diagnosed. So I just believe it should be changed for better understanding and support. And it's all about being an advocate for the patient. So that's just my feeling. And I want to talk about this article that I saw recently that says, woman says ChatGPT saved her life by helping detect cancer, which doctors missed. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because she was originally diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And I had a lot of problems with this article. No, first of all, I just want to say I love ChatGPT myself personally. I have used it so much lately. I highly suggest taking a look at that. If you haven't tried ChatGPT yet, it's fantastic. And I am super thankful that this lady listened to her intuition and that she used ChatGPT because it did ultimately save her life. So the news article headline is true. It did save her life by detecting cancer, and that's amazing. But what they talk about inside the article about RA is what makes me mad. So let me just tell you the problems that I have with this particular article. First of all, it says underneath the headline, doctors told the mother of two that she had arthritis when she actually had a thyroid cancer. Now, here, this is why. This is why rheumatoid arthritis needs to have its name changed. Because even the writer, maybe they're a medical writer, who knows who this journalist is? But whoever this journalist is writing this article, she doesn't even know what rheumatoid arthritis is because she is just like haphazardly saying, "Oh, she was just diagnosed with arthritis, like it's osteoarthritis." And that's what ticks me off about this kind of stuff. The article also says, this is what makes me mad. I don't know. You read the article, you tell me, does it make you mad like it does me? These little things pop out to me and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Okay. It says, after 4 months, the 40-year-old was told by doctors that she had rheumatoid arthritis despite testing negative for the condition. Like, that's a problem? Hello? I have seronegative RA, which means I also tested negative for the condition, and that ticks me off. That's like saying that, "Oh, because she tested negative, then there's a problem." No, it's not. They don't know what they're talking about. And another thing that was really interesting is her hands were hurting, or it was hard for her to bend her hands, or she was having trouble in her hand joints. And I was like, well, I can see why the doctors would think that it was RA, but I was curious about this. So I basically copied this entire article and I plugged it into my version of ChatGPT. And I basically said, look, this article doesn't make any sense to me. Help me understand this story from the news. I'm so glad to hear that ChatGPT helped another person with their health and diagnosed them with cancer. That's amazing. But her story has holes in it, at least the way the journalist wrote it. Okay. I said, it's first of all, it's not a bad thing to have seronegative RA. That doesn't prove that she didn't have it. And also, how could Hashimoto's or a thyroid disease, which is what the article goes on to talk about, how does Hashimoto's cause joint problems in her hands? Okay, so then ChatGPT read the whole thing and told me, great catch. You're right to ask these questions of the story and of the details in this story. He said that can Hashimoto's cause joint pain in the hands? Yes, but indirectly. And this is where ChatGPT helped her. So, Hashimoto's can cause hypothyroidism, and low thyroid levels can cause joint and muscle pain, stiffness, and swelling, even in the hands. But it's not classic for it to start as joint pain, especially not as the primary symptom. And in this case, that's how it was missed. So that makes sense. And as far as what happened for me, that was not classic, is that my first ever symptom or pain of RA started in the heel of my foot. I mean, what do most people think about when they think of RA? They think of the hands, right? And they don't think of the knees. It really affects my knees now. My knees are the worst. But my first symptom was in my foot. So, not everything is textbook and not everything is classic. So, anyway, moving on from this story, I don't want this whole video to be about me breaking apart this news article, but it does raise a lot of questions about how the public views rheumatoid arthritis. And especially this journalist, they view it like it's osteoarthritis. And they're also spreading this information out there to everyone who's reading these articles because it's in several different news organizations that are publishing this story. And all of these people that are reading the articles are getting the wrong impression about rheumatoid arthritis. And it's not spreading awareness of what is rheumatoid arthritis. They're making it sound like, again, that it was just osteo. So, anyway, I'm going to see what I can do and what ball to start rolling. I mean, I don't know if we need to sign a petition to see if we can get the name changed, but I definitely believe that it should be done. Now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to talk about bad doctors versus good doctors. So, I think I mentioned briefly that my daughter has been having some health issues, and now we have a lot more answers so I can share what's going on. And this is absolutely insane. And again, this is where ChatGPT helped me out throughout this whole process. So let me break this down. She is 13, and obviously she shares my DNA and my genetics. And she got fifth disease in December. And that's a very common virus for children to get, and it causes a very red, what they called a slapped cheek look on their cheeks, and it can cause fever and a rash. It usually goes away in about 7 to 10 days for most children. They get over it. It's usually mild and it just goes away. Once they have it, they won't get it again. It's kind of like mono or chicken pox. Can you hear that? There's a house being built through the woods where we live. So if you hear some really crazy noise, like if you hear really crazy noises, that's what it is. So just like how it's very similar to mono because it's a virus, that also means that it can cause some complications. And viruses are weird like that. So evidently, it caused a post-viral arthritis in her hands and knees. And her hands started in January and her knees started in February. And when it first started, I thought, well, maybe it's just temporary, but then it kept lingering and it kept on. And she also started to have daily low grade fevers like 99.3, 99.8. And in my early days of RA, I did too. I had low grade fevers all the time and it makes you feel bad. So her pediatrician didn't 100% think it was fifth disease right away because her symptoms were lasting so far outside of like the 7 to 10 day window, especially like the 2 week window. And her pediatrician is wonderful. So I I really appreciate her. But she didn't think it was fifth disease at first because it lasted so long. So we didn't really know, but she knew something was going on and she knew my history with it. So she immediately referred us to a pediatric rheumatologist and we got in right away. Well, initially on the first appointment, it made sense that she said, I can't diagnose her because she hasn't had symptoms long enough. So we got in way too soon. All right. Okay. So then when we saw her for the first appointment, her hands were only swollen, not her knees. And like a couple weeks later, the knees started. So I sent the doctor pictures and video of her knees swelling. And I thought, man, she may want to see us sooner. And she said, no, it's fine. We'll just wait a couple more weeks and we'll see you again. I was just 100% sure, like once she saw her knees that were visibly swollen, that she would think, yeah, there's something going on here. But at that point, she just said, I think it's runner's knee because all of the labs came back normal. Well, so did mine. I have seronegative. So at the end of the appointment, I pushed her to run the parvovirus test, the blood test, to see if she indeed had fifth disease. And within a couple days, it came back positive, and it meant she did indeed have fifth disease. Well, the doctor wouldn't change her stance on it at all. She just said, nope, it's still runner's knee and she needs physical therapy. And she just kept arguing with me that if she didn't have a temperature of 100.3, that it wasn't a fever and that it didn't matter if she was running 99.3, 99.8 every single day for 4 months. Oh, this doctor said that's normal because it's not 100.3. And I don't like being argued with over something like that. Like, if someone's diagnosed with migraines and they get migraine medication, the doctor doesn't have to like physically see their pain in their brain or in their head on a MRI or CAT scan. They just take their word for it. Like, I don't understand some doctors. But it wasn't just the fact that she wouldn't shift her position based on new facts, new evidence being presented in like hard copy form. Um, that that alone is weird to me, like that she wouldn't change her stance, but it was how she treated us. So I took her back again for a third appointment because at this point we were desperate. We couldn't get into another pediatric rheumatologist until June. And so right now that I'm recording this, it's at the end of April. So her pediatrician knew that she was in a desperate situation and was having trouble, going to school and everything. So she said, please try the doctor again for a third time. Well, I really wish we didn't go because it was a horrible appointment. She didn't treat us with respect. And to make matters worse, literally the night before, my daughter started to have flu symptoms, but I didn't know. I just know she's been sick, for so long and doesn't feel well. But later I found out it was the flu. But the next morning when it was time for me to take her to her appointment, she couldn't walk. She could barely get out of bed. She couldn't even squeeze her toothpaste. And she couldn't take a shower either. She was in really bad shape. And so I know what that feels like because, I have a wheelchair. So I was like, all right, when we get to the hospital, because it's a children's hospital, and it's a really far walk from the parking garage into the doctor's office. I was like, I am just going to push you in a wheelchair. I know that they have them near the elevator, near where we park. I'm just going to get one and put you in it. Because she was exhausted and wiped out. So I pushed her in a wheelchair into the third appointment. And guess how the doctor responded? Just rude. Directly asked her, so why are you in a wheelchair today? Like, there's something wrong with that. It was like she was treating her like she was faking it. Well, at the moment, I didn't know she had the flu, but I just know my kid and I know she doesn't feel good. Well, I was so frustrated during this appointment, but then it got worse because she left the room and went and got a fibromyalgia form and brought it in for Abigail to fill out. And she doesn't have pain anywhere in her body except her knuckles and her knees. And when you look at this form for fibromyalgia, where are the pain points? In the muscles, in all the other parts of the body. There wasn't even a section on this diagram for her to select hands or knees. It just baffles me. And so I'm not saying that fibromyalgia is not a legit diagnosis. I know it is, and I know it has treatment options and that people deal with it every day. But what I am angry about is I believe a lot of doctors use it as almost like a diagnosis of exclusion. Like, if we don't know what's going on with you and you're being a pain in our rear, we're just going to shove this in your face to get you out of the office. That's what I felt like. I was so mad when I saw that form because I'm like, I know she had fifth disease. I know her hands and knees are swollen. I know what she deals with every day, and she has low-grade fevers. Don't tell me that my daughter has fibromyalgia. That's maddening. So anyway, after that, it was like we were just going to have to wait until June to see another pediatric rheumatologist. Because as you know, if you live with rheumatoid arthritis, how difficult it is to find a rheumatologist, let alone a pediatric rheumatologist. It's even harder. But guess what? The very next day, or no, 2 days later, I had my regular checkup with my rheumatologist. And I found out they had a pediatric rheumatologist on staff at my doctor's office, at our local office. And I told her that the pediatrician had sent over a referral, but it had been like almost 30 days. And she said, yeah, the referral coordinator had been out of the country, but she was back in the office and she would let her know. And wouldn't you know, by the time I got home from my appointment, the appointment coordinator called me and we were able to schedule an appointment within 2 weeks. And our appointment was yesterday and it was fantastic. And it's amazing how the contrast between a really bad doctor and being treated so horribly, and almost it was like a gaslighting situation. And gaslighting means you see something like fever, swelling, but the doctor's telling you, oh, you don't have that. Does that make any sense? I mean, why? It's almost like telling someone to ignore their own eyes. Okay, so you go from like having a really, really bad situation and then having a really, really good one, and the contrast is huge. Okay, so the doctor we saw yesterday was warm and kind and compassionate, didn't rush us, asked a lot of questions. And in his defense, when we went to see the doctor yesterday, he already had X-ray results, MRI results of her knees, and all the blood test results. All of this was given to him on the first appointment. So everything was handed to him. And unfortunately, with the other doctor, when we first saw her, several months ago, when we saw her, she had nothing. So she was starting from zero. So I do recognize that one had an advantage over the other. But he didn't even hardly have to examine her for very long. Like, he looked at her knees and touched them and knew they were swollen. He didn't even need to like bend them around. Have you ever been like, you go to your appointment and you're like bending around and this way, like you get bent all over the place? he didn't even have to do that because he could just see it, and he listened to us, and he took our word for it, and he validated that a low grade fever is a low grade fever and that it's not normal to have every day. I mean, the validation was just incredible, and to be heard and to be seen. There's just like, you can't explain that feeling. Like, it's just huge. So he did start her on a treatment, and we're going to follow up in June. And it's just night and day difference, night and day experience from one doctor to another. And, from me personally, I've experienced all of these new things with rheumatoid arthritis over the last year and a half, and it's all new for me. And it's just crazy. It's just been a roller coaster ride, but it is a whole other experience and emotion when it comes to your child. You know what I'm talking about? It's just crazy. So anyway, to wrap that up, that story is, we're kind of like in the middle. Like, it could very well be that this is just going to be like a 6-month thing for her, that it's just a lingering post-viral experience going on here, which is not common, but it's not uncommon either. And it can last months, and it should resolve itself. That's what we're hoping. But once we get to the 6-month mark, if she's not experiencing any type of improvement at all in her symptoms, then, we could be looking at a totally different scenario. Like, it triggered some type of autoimmune response in her. So we're just kind of at that waiting period right now. But again, like I have said in my other videos, just having hope means a lot. We have to have hope that we're going to get better, or that we have a treatment, or there's a plan, that we have a plan. And if we have a flare, which I have from time to time, we have a plan in place. We can use Voltaren, we can use ice, we can rest. Like, we have to have these plans in place to take care of ourselves. So I know this video is really long, and if you're still here at the end, thank you so much for listening to this big, long story. And let me know if you have any questions. I know it's a lot. It's been a lot to experience all of this. Um, but again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, please let me know what name you believe would tell the story of RA a little bit better. And do you believe it needs to be changed? And I will keep you updated. I'm not exactly sure what my first step is. I did ask the rheumatologist yesterday that we saw, since he's one of those rare rheumatologists that can see both adults and children at the same time. I think that's quite amazing. But he has a lot of experience in the field, and so I asked him specifically where I should go to start getting the name changed, and he said to go to the Arthritis Foundation. So I'm going to check that out, and I'll let you know how it goes. And again, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.